Welcome everyone to the 152nd Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where we will be looking into Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new and returning, I take notes on a synastry chart looking at the personal planets, signs, aspects, and of birth times available house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us, and let's get right into this one. Starting off with the sun, we have Stevie's sun in Gemini and Lindsey's sun in Libra. These are both air signs. The relationship lacks decisiveness and it's an equal relationship, which I kind of feel like summarizes them nicely in terms of like the band dynamic, you know, particularly with, I feel like, because they work, I don't want to say like a hippie band, but they were a band in the 70s. So, you know, a bit more free flowing and everything, particularly when bands were kind of newer. You know, I imagine it would be less strict than it is these days with like people knowing the success you can get out of a band, if that makes sense. And I feel like with Stevie, you know, being, you know, lead vocalist most of the time and Lindsey kind of being in the background, I feel like, you know, when it was around the time it was, that would have been quite equal, if that makes sense. Both are social who thrive on being with others. Makes sense why they would be in a band. They both enjoy the other's intelligence and wit, and Lindsey has a desire to please Stevie. Stevie's sun overlaid in Lindsey's 10th house. Steve sees Lindsey as an authority figure, and Stevie believes she deserves respect from Lindsey. I mean, as she should. Lindsey enjoys the respect he gets from Stevie, and Stevie accepts Lindsey without thinking, which I feel like could be a part of, because I know with Fleetwood Mac, like some band members did change over time. So I wonder if maybe Lindsey came on a bit later and Stevie, you know, accepted him into the band without thinking. Stevie thinks Lindsey is more intellectual than her. So I guess in a way, like, you know, appreciating the sort of like talent he has, maybe that is where, you know, she thinks he's more intellectual than her. As far as I know, you know, she wasn't particularly too much on the instruments as much as she was like vocally and everything else. Lindsey being the guitarist, maybe that is where, you know, she found he was a bit better, you know, intellectual when it came to the guitar skills and everything. Lindsey's sun overlaid in Stevie's 6th house. They are productive together, as, you know, it shows. Lindsey is submissive. Again, I wonder if this is in terms of like, you know, Stevie being the lead vocalist and kind of Lindsey being the background. You know, I don't want to say like there was sort of like a lead, you know, with Fleetwood Mac, because obviously it was a variety of a group of people. But I feel like Stevie Nicks is kind of like the standout star from the, you know, the Justin Timberlake, the Harry Styles and everything. Work is a strong theme here, and it's a boss-assistant relationship. That's interesting, considering we saw like, you know, Stevie accepting Lindsey in. I'm curious to know a bit more about like the specific, I guess the more, I want the boring side of the band, like in terms of who was actually like running the show, because obviously superficially looks like Stevie was, but I'm just curious with that. Their suns are trying together, so there's mutual respect, which we did see. They energize each other and they are supportive of each other. They are cooperative with each other and they accumulate wealth and luck, not surprisingly so. They can deal with conflict in a healthy way. I mean, I'm not sure on the details and everything, but, you know, as the famous, like, Silver Springs performance, you know, it was, I would say, in a way, healthy. It wasn't, like, violent or anything. So, in that way, I see it. Stevie's sun square Lindsey's moon. There's a basic misunderstanding. I wonder if this has anything to do with the sort of, like, breakup or anything, like, literally with their personal breakup, because I'm pretty sure they were together. I mean, obviously so. But also with maybe the like band breakup, or if they like separated ways at some point with the band. They have practical disagreements, and Lindsey sees Stevie as too rational and selfish. Stevie sees Lindsey as too sensitive, and there is general discontent. Lindsey may feel resentful towards Stevie over time, which could be potentially, I mean, due to like more the practical things. It seems like Stevie's a bit more practical and everything. But also potentially, like, if Stevie was the one that brought Lindsey into all of this, that could be, a reason why he may feel resentful, is not enjoying his time in the band, and it's all Stevie's fault. Stevie's sun trine Lindsey's Mercury. There is a great friendship and good communication. Stevie accepts Lindsey and they both just get each other, which we're seeing again with Stevie accepting Lindsey. They do business together well, and Stevie supports Lindsey's beliefs. They can talk through issues together. Stevie gets what makes Lindsey tick, and Stevie admires Lindsey's intelligence, we're seeing again. They understand each other on a basic level. I mean, if they are both like, creatively inclined and everything, particularly musically inclined, I'm sure that is like a very basic thing they'll get about each other. They speak to each other with understanding, and Stevie allows Lindsey to express himself. Stevie feels she can think better around Lindsey. Lindsey's sun squares Stevie's moon. This is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized, but also Stevie thinks Lindsey is too rational and selfish, and Lindsey sees Stevie as too sensitive. Stevie may feel resentful towards Lindsey over time, which again we saw in the Silver Springs, performance and everything, because I'm pretty sure that was like a long time after like their actual relationship. It wasn't like a fresh thing, it was a long time after, and you could see the emotions. Lindsey's sun squares Stevie's Venus. Their views on the world clash, and it's not as promising as it looks. I feel like this would be referring, you could see in terms of like the band, maybe their sort of like talent together was not as great as it could have been, but also, as a relationship, because, I guess it's not like a stereotypical thing people in bands work out, but you're in a band together, you're spending a lot of time together, you have similar interests and everything, like, it could kind of work, but, not as promising as it looks. Love can easily turn into hate, and they have arguments over money. So I wonder if they have conflicts in that way, like, because we did see like they're both seeing each other as like quite, rational and selfish and sensitive and all of that. That's like a mutual thing. So I wonder if they had differences in how they viewed money and like spending it particularly. Lindsey is selfishly ambitious, and Stevie tries to keep the relationship balanced. That is interesting, and again, I don't blame her for it, like particularly like at the sort of, I don't want to say at the peak, but like when they were coming up and had this sort of first peak, you could say, I'm sure Stevie would have been trying to do her best to preserve, herself and everything. They both hope to find what they are looking for in the other. Lindsey's sun conjuncts Stevie's Neptune. It's a very spiritual relationship, and Lindsey is fascinated by Stevie. There's intuitive communication and understanding, and Stevie is attracted to Lindsey's straightforward nature. They both need to be careful not to confuse reality and illusions. That's an interesting thing. Like, for me, I guess, like, it's very obvious when it comes to, like, actors, isn't it? Like, because you're literally playing someone else. But I guess it's not as obvious with musicians, but I'm sure it would be a similar thing. Like, the sort of personas, particularly, like, the stage personas and, like, the music they write about and everything, it's you need to be careful with that. This relationship boosts Lindsey's intuitiveness. Lindsey's sun sextile Stevie's Pluto. There's a strong connection, and they are more powerful together. They comfortably share secrets, and they're drawn to each other in a magnetic way, which I feel like we're seeing, like, again, this whole idea that they're quite drawn to each other and everything. Now for the intermission, this video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry chart readings on my Etsy store. I do both basic and detailed ones. The basic ones are a bit more simple to understand and really good for those just beginning out in astrology, getting their heads around it, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed readings are very similar to what I do here, so it's a lot of it just with my insights and interpretation on the chart. So if you're interested in that and everything else, astrology and tarot, readings and gifts, definitely check out my Etsy store for that. I'm always releasing new other things there as well. And you can even just favorite the store just to support me for free. Thank you for listening, and let's get back to the reading. So now it's time for moon. We have Stevie's moon in Capricorn and Lindsey's moon in Aquarius. Their emotional needs are contrasting, and Stevie may not appreciate Lindsey's free spirit. It seems like to me, like with everything we've seen so far, it seems like Stevie kind of like prioritizes the band and everything. It seems like she's a bit more invested into it. Not to say that Lindsey isn't, but we've seen like he's a bit more selfishly ambitious now, this whole free spirit thing. Like to me, it's reminding me of like a trope, I guess you could say, of like a person that just goes around to different bands and everything, you know, just kind of like, I don't want to say freeloads, but, you know, band hops, you could say. And it seems like Stevie is quite dedicated to the band, trying to make this work. And it seems like, not that Lindsey doesn't care, probably doesn't have the same commitment though as Stevie. Both have a hard time expressing emotions, which is interesting because I feel like we've seen a couple times already they have like an intuitive like communication and understanding. So it's like, you know, telepathic things they're doing. Lindsey is not sympathetic to Stevie's views, which is strange because it seems like Lindsey to me, because it seems like with Stevie, like she definitely seems to be a bit more like spiritual, like not only from what we've seen, but like also like in this reading, you know, like Lindsey has this fascination of Stevie. I wonder if it is a situation of like Lindsey, like the whole trope of like the manic pixie girl, like Lindsey kind of like admiring and sort of like fantasizing and idolizing Stevie, who's a bit more like, you know, spiritual and like whimsical, you could say. Especially at the time, you know, where there were, you know, women were expected to be a certain way, and being like Stevie, so to speak, being more like, you know, bohemian, you could say, and more free-spirited was a bit, you know, whimsical and not as conventional. And so I wonder if Lindsey was kind of like fascinated by Stevie and her sort of rebellion, you could say. But not genuinely kind of being on board with it and like what it's actually about for Stevie, if that makes sense. Stevie's moon overlaid in Lindsey's 5th house. Stevie sees Lindsey as perfect, which, I mean, we've already seen, like, she seems to like idolize him and everything as well. Lindsey is flattered by Stevie, and Stevie drops her emotional guard around Lindsey, which kind of worries me because, like, we did just see both have a hard time expressing their emotions. It kind of sucks if, you know, she has a hard time doing it, but, you know, feels, you know, she's able to drop it around Lindsey. Stevie feels an emotional connection with Lindsey, and Lindsey appreciates their emotional relationship. That's good. They both enjoy spending time together, and they have lots of fun together. Lindsey's moon overlaid in Stevie's 11th house. Lindsey sees Stevie as the dream person. Like, it does seem like they both, like, really admire each other. Like, it is just that, you know, little thing of Lindsey not being as sympathetic to her views, which makes me think, is Lindsey's, like, you know, admiration of Stevie, or is it of the idea of Stevie? We did say not to be careful to confuse reality and illusions. Maybe it comes more for, like, Lindsey. Lindsey feels at ease around Stevie, and Stevie feels relaxed around Lindsey. They both feel they can be themselves, and they're never really mad at each other, which, you know, helps. Stevie's moon is square Lindsey's Mercury. It's emotionally challenging from what we have seen, because we have seen they both seem to be quite comfortable around each other emotionally. But, you know, considering we did see how they both have a hard time with their emotions, I imagine that is what would be the challenge of itself, to actually open up emotionally. Stevie has a hard time getting Lindsey to listen. Again, like, there is a smidge of, like, not sexism, but, like, feminism, you could say, where, like, Stevie is sort of like the superior figure and she's a woman. I'm sure at this time, like, it would have been quite difficult, you know, for her and everything, and definitely different expectations, you know, with them. Lindsey feels Stevie's too sensitive to criticism, and they both need to learn to listen. Lindsey feels frustrated with Stevie, and Stevie feels Lindsey doesn't value her opinions or respect her intellectually. It just seems like there is a smidge of, like, I don't want to say, like, it's hard to say if it's like sexism or not, or if it is just like the sign of the times like they were in, and like Stevie being this sort of like, you know, front woman, because as far as I know, like at the top of my head, I don't think there really was anyone else like Stevie Nicks, you know, around the time where like all the bands were like sort of like at their, you know, first peaks and everything. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of like, you know, front women compared to like all the bands that were just like all men. Stevie's moon conjunct Lindsay's Jupiter. It's easy to overdo and be excessive. It's a relationship of opportunities and fortune, and they have a positive influence as a couple. I mean, I don't feel like they have a particularly negative one, do they? Like, you know, the only thing I've really seen about them, you know, a lot of people, especially now, are a big fan of the whole like Silver Springs performance and everything. They need to learn balance and they take risks as a couple. This is a bit of a wild take because we haven't seen anything when it comes to the meeting, and I probably will see where this meeting goes. May change my mind and go back on this. But like taking risks as a couple, and we did see like they need to learn balance and like it's not as promising as it looks. I wonder, were they together in some kind of way before like the band and everything, and maybe that's how Stevie knew Lindsay? That's where my brain is going with the note, but you know, we'll see if that's actually like something or not. They support people in need, and Stevie feels luckier and more adventurous around Lindsay. Lindsay expands Stevie's way of thinking about life. I wonder if there is, because there does seem to be a sort of issue with like Lindsay not being quite 100% with Stevie's views and like her ideas and everything. I wonder if there is a bit of conflict with that, because maybe Lindsay is coming from a place of like, I want to help you. But there is that sort of conflict of maybe Stevie interpreting that as like Lindsay trying to undermine her. Stevie's moon at Trine Lindsay's Saturn. Building on past traditions is important. I have no idea where this could be, because like, not to say like Fleetwood Mac's the original band, but like, you know, particular of like the dynamics they had with like Stevie being like the front woman, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of bands of them like that before or anything. So I don't know what past traditions there would be. Potentially this is more indicative of their personal relationship as well. Maybe something, I don't know, some, you know, family tradition they need to maintain. It's a stable relationship and there's a potential for accumulating wealth. We're seeing again the wealth. Stevie sees Lindsay as mature and Lindsay is accountable with Stevie. Lindsay's desire for commitment is appealing to Stevie. I imagine this would be in the literal sense of the band. You know, he wants to say in the band that's appealing to Stevie, because it seems like there is an element of like Stevie, you know, accepting Lindsay in, which I imagine would be more into the band than anything else. But, you know, maybe on the personal front, like Lindsay maybe wanted to settle down or something, which I don't think that, you know, ended up the way maybe they planned it to. Lindsay prioritizes domestic life and Lindsay finds it difficult to be emotionally caring. Again, that difficult emotionally, it doesn't seem like they have a lot in their like emotional cup, or they just don't know how to pour out of it, if that makes sense. They can achieve mutual long-term goals together. That they did. Stevie's moon is square Lindsay's Neptune. They misunderstand each other's signals and it's a confusing relationship. I mean, I'm sure it would be for them, like particularly like with, you know, their work and personal probably having a huge overlap. And particularly with, because we did see the whole illusions, or not confusing reality and illusions, but that seems to be more something on Lindsay than Stevie from what we've seen. There's a possibility of neglecting each other and Stevie is unsure of Lindsay's intentions. Okay. They have difficulty maintaining the relationship, which I think would come from like if they're working together a lot. Particularly it seems like Stevie prioritizes that. I'm sure like the actual relationship, like their personal relationship, would be quite difficult to maintain if they're neglecting it. Stevie is sensitive to Lindsay's moods. Lindsay's moon at Trine at Stevie's Mercury. They're comfortable talking to each other about everything, and Stevie enjoys being emotionally nourished by Lindsay. I mean, I'm sure she would potentially, like particularly like, because we did see she is able to drop her guard down around Lindsay. I'm sure that would be quite rewarding for her. Stevie provides a foundation for Lindsay's feelings. Lindsey is comfortable expressing his feelings of Stevie, and it's a harmonious relationship, which I feel like, emotionally, it seems to be harmonious in the sense that they both, have difficulty with it a bit. Lindsey's moon opposite Stevie's Mars. It's an emotional roller coaster, and they both get defensive. Lindsey finds Stevie to be aggressive. Like, to me, there is, I don't know, it feels like I don't want to, say anything about Lindsey. I don't know the guy. Besides his music, I don't really know him in any way. But, there seems to be a smidge of, I don't know, resentment or, it's just reminding me of, the rhetoric of, she's, a crazy woman, but, if she was a man, she would be very respected. That's what it's reminding me of. Lindsey would, only has, a problem with Stevie and her assertiveness because she's Stevie. He's not, a fellow band member, Stevie finds Lindsey to be demanding, and they both react instinctually to each other. Codependency is likely to occur. I'm sure it does. In a band, that has to be massive because you're all kind of relying on each other for everything. I'm not sure if Lindsey was there from the very beginning, but I'm sure in the beginning when they're not as big and wealthy as they could be, they're probably really struggling to maintain their own lives and everything. Lindsey wants commitment with Stevie. It's interesting how we're seeing this commitment thing, because it seems like there is an element of Lindsey being this free spirit. And because we did see Stevie kind of allows him into the band, that makes me think it's more referring to wandering and being a band hopper, so to speak. As some people, tend to be, particularly with guitarists and everything. But it is also interesting how we're seeing Lindsey has this desire for commitment. He prioritizes domestic life. I wonder if maybe Lindsey kind of has resentment towards Stevie, maybe because she didn't want to settle down with him, because it seems like she's prioritizing the band and everything from what we're seeing here. So I wonder if maybe that is what led to their sort of breakup, you could say. Lindsey's moon is sextile Stevie's Jupiter. They have good fortune and they're a popular couple. Duh. They have honest communication and likely for them to support charities. I mean, I'm sure Fleetwood Mac did something at some point. Excessiveness could be an issue, and they have an intellectual understanding. Lindsey's moon at Trine Stevie's Uranus. They both feel free to express themselves, and there's a level of unpredictability. They're in a band. Of course there's unpredictability. Ideas of unconventional domestic setup bring them together, which this could be literal in terms of they're touring together. They're probably living, obviously in very unconventional domestic way, obviously tour buses and hotels and everything. But I wonder if this may have something to do with because we did see that traditions are good to maintain or something like that. I wonder if maybe, I don't know, they both have some sort of maybe generational issues, they come from a family of whatever, and that may bring them together. Does that make sense? And in their own way, it's important to maintain that tradition. That's where my brain's going. Stevie is more open around Lindsey. We're seeing again, it seems like she really opens up to him. They can cope with sudden changes together, and Stevie feels safe with Lindsey. They enjoy talking about social issues, and mutual friends bring them together. Yeah, the whole point of them taking risks as a couple, I feel like that's kind of very quickly gone out the window, because mutual friends bring them together. That makes me think, Lindsey was recommended to Stevie by someone else or something like that. I'm sure, during that sort of time in, the 70s and everything, or 60s, 70s, that sort of whole time period, I'm sure it was a niche community, and, in that sort of, rock band sphere, particularly, with, blues music. They don't do blues. I feel like Fleetwood Mac does a lot of things to the point where it's what do you categorize them as? But, that sort of, blues, rock, bohemian, hippie type sort of scene, I'm sure is very tight-knit and, very easy for people to recommend potential band members to each other. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Stevie's Mercury in Gemini and Lindsey's Mercury in Libra. These are both air signs again. They have abstract conversations and they share detached and objective values. They both tend to be argumentative and it's intellectually stimulating. Stevie's Mercury overlaid in Lindsey's 11th house. Stevie is open and communicative with Lindsey, which we're seeing again, not surprisingly so, and Lindsey looks forward to spending time with Stevie. Lindsey finds Stevie pleasant and they are both tolerant and patient with each other. At least they have that. Lindsey's Mercury overlaid in Stevie's 6th house. Lindsey's mind is stable around Stevie and Lindsey communicates with Stevie practically. Stevie thinks that Lindsey is reliable. There is a lot of Stevie feeling like Lindsey is a very safe person, which makes me think, I feel like this would have been quite rough, like either way, whatever happened. Because if it was on Stevie's end that this, relationship ended pretty much where if it was an issue of like Lindsey wants this commitment but Stevie's not really able to be there, like I'm sure that must be quite tough for her on a very deep level. But like if, Lindsey did dump her whatever way that was, that would really crush Stevie as well. Stevie sees Lindsey as a stable companion. Lindsey's Mercury square Stevie's Venus. They find each other interesting and attractive. I mean, we've seen this on Lindsey's end, definitely, for Stevie. They don't understand each other's romantic ideas and mundane communication is difficult. Exchanging ideas is a source of conflict. I wonder, because it seems like creatively they seem to be quite fine. We're not seeing anything too much there, but I wonder if mundane communication refers to maybe like the sort of behind the scenes of the band in terms of like finances and everything. Because we did see it's like implied that there seems to be an issue with that part of it. So I wonder if they have very different issues of like how to go about the band, and that sort of exchanging ideas is a conflict, not so much about like the creative side of the band. They frequent disagreements and they need to learn to listen to each other and they have a difference in music taste. I mean, like, if Lindsey was a bit of, like, a floater, maybe, this wasn't really for him initially. I would imagine at some point he would have at least grown to tolerate it. But then again, I feel like I'm not, Stevie Nicks. Fleetwood Mac is not the only band in the world, but I feel like they are pretty unique, so maybe Lindsey took some time to like it. Lindsey's Mercury conjuncts Stevie's Neptune. It's hard to talk about practical matters. Yeah, I imagine those sort of like mundane, boring financial talks will be hard. Spirituality is prioritized and they have a telepathic like connection, which we did see a bit earlier on, so that's there repeated. Lindsey helps Stevie turn her dreams into reality. I wonder, because obviously there would have had to be the slow period of the band, I wonder if maybe when Lindsey came into the band, and when Stevie eventually listened to him, I wonder if those sort of changes maybe like boosted the band a bit more and like, helped Stevie, dreams of the band being good. They have a habit of telling the other what they want to hear, and there's deceptive and exaggerative communication. I feel like this refers back to, the whole, like, not needing for them to not confuse, reality and illusions. Lindsey finds Stevie confusing and they are compassionate towards each other. That's nice. Lindsey's Mercury sextiles Stevie's Pluto. They're interested in unique subjects together. I mean, I guess, music's kind of unique at the time, and spirituality as well seems to be something. They share a lot together and it's a therapist-patient relationship. Lindsey uplifts Stevie and they get to the bottom of things quickly. Lindsey is fascinated by Stevie's depth. Again, like, there is a fascination with her. It's just like, how genuine is it? How deep does it go, you could say. They tell each other their deepest secrets and they both heal from past relationships together. That's sad. Like, I kind of wish these two worked. Like, this doesn't seem to be bad. It's just, I feel like kind of sucks, Stevie opens up Lindsey to new ways of thinking and they resolve deeper matters together. Stevie appreciates Lindsey's humor. So now it's time for Venus. We have Stevie's Venus in Cancer and Lindsey's Venus in Scorpio. These are both water signs. They are drawn to each other and they feel at home together. It's sweet. Like, it's nice. Like, they seem to, particularly on Stevie's end, they both seem to feel like fairly safe around each other and like really drawn to stay together. They are committed to each other and there's a magnetic attraction. Stevie's warm nature regenerates Lindsey and Lindsey may unintentionally hurt Stevie. That I don't like. I'm very curious to, like, see what actually like went on between these two, because like from what we're getting here, it seems like they both like if they would have hurt each other, it would have been by their own like personal natures, you could say. You know, like Lindsey, he seems to be a bit more like free spirited, and Stevie, in her own way, is like seems to be a bit more of a workaholic, not necessarily prioritizing like domestic life like Lindsey. And it's nothing inherently wrong, it just kind of, you know, not the best, I guess you could say, for these two. Stevie's Venus overlaid in Lindsey's 11th house. Stevie immediately likes Lindsey, so going back to it seems like there's a sort of immediate acceptance of him. They are comfortable with each other, and Lindsey senses he can be himself around Stevie. They both share the same social activities and hobbies. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they ran in the same like sort of like band circles, musical circles, you could say. They are both open with the other, and they are good friends. I imagine they would have started off as friends, or like friends colleagues, you could say. Lindsey's Venus overlaid in Stevie's 7th house. Lindsey sees Stevie as the perfect partner. That's why it makes me sad. Like, it seems like both of them, I don't want to say it wasn't meant to be, because, like, I want it to be. I wish this was a thing. But, you know, it seems like both their personal natures and, like, I guess issues, the, you know, hang-ups, it's not necessarily a negative thing, that's the issue. Just did it mesh well? Like, the puzzle didn't quite fit. They are complementary, and Stevie feels comfortable around Lindsey. Lindsey satisfies Stevie's needs, which I think we did see how Lindsey has a desire to please Stevie. They both want to please each other. Longevity relies on Stevie's attraction to Lindsey. Interesting. Stevie's Venus sextile Lindsey's Saturn. Stevie sees Lindsey as a long-term person in her life. It's just sad. You know, Lindsey stabilizes Stevie's emotions, and they're willing to make sacrifices for the other. I wonder if that had anything to do with their breakup. Like, did they break up because of, I don't know, something that happened with the band they had to sacrifice? Like, they had to sacrifice the relationship for the band or something like that? I'm pretty sure, like, there was something how Stevie said, like, she had to give up, like, love and children because of the band. So I wonder, but that's not necessarily making sacrifices for the other. It just shows that sacrifices were a part of the relationship. I guess it's like band members that were willing to make sacrifices for the other, but in turn the relationship went under, probably. There's a strong commitment, and they help each other in career. Duh. Stevie's Venus conjunct to Lindsey's Uranus. There's an instant attraction, and they share unusual interests, which I imagine will be spirituality, particularly, like, I'm not sure of their, like, specific spiritual beliefs, but, like, with Stevie, I'm pretty sure she has the sort of, like, more, like, new age spirituality, or maybe she's just associated with it, but, like, you know, those sort of more unique things, like, you know, they definitely weren't, like, traditional, like, Christians, as far as I know, which was, like, the common thing for, like, America at the time. Stevie is attracted to Lindsey's unpredictability, and initial attraction fades, which, oh, I don't like that. There's no way, because we did just see how, like, the longevity relies on Stevie's attraction. Surely there is no way she just got rid of him, so to speak, because she just wasn't attracted to him anymore. Surely not. Stevie's Venus square Lindsey's Neptune. Stevie needs to make sure she falls for the real Lindsey, not her illusion. So it's mutual, the whole illusion reality thing. I wonder then, because, like, the initial attraction fading, I wonder if the initial attraction fading refers to, like, I guess, like, Lindsey's so-called mask falling and his real persona coming through, and maybe Stevie not liking that or something like that. That's why that attraction faded. Lindsey needs to be careful to keep promises and not make huge ones. And Lindsey has a hard time dealing with Stevie because she doesn't want to see reality, which is the attraction thing. But we did see earlier on, like, we've been seeing bits of it where it seems like Lindsey is wanting to help Stevie, but it seems like Stevie is kind of seeing it as Lindsey trying to undermine her, when it seems like he's just trying to help. So maybe in that way, you know, he has a difficult time dealing with Stevie. Like, he's sort of like fellow band member, because she doesn't want to see the reality of certain things. There's extremes of trusting. Lindsey's Venus squares Stevie's Saturn. Stevie is critical and demanding of Lindsey, and Stevie eventually withholds affection from Lindsey. Oh no. This is a weird U-turn we're on, aren't we? That's sad. That's really, it just makes me think, like, not to, I guess diagnose or anything, but I wonder if maybe Stevie has some, maybe, I don't know, like, internal, like, battles with herself when it comes to, I don't know, commitment or something like that, or, because, like, it just sucks. Lindsey sees Stevie as unsympathetic, and Stevie sees Lindsey as childish and undisciplined. I mean, I feel like this clearly refers to the band. She's wanting to, discipline him, focus on the work and everything. Criticism is rooted from jealousy. So now it's time for Mars. We have Stevie's Mars in Virgo and Lindsey's Mars in Leo. Lindsey wants admiration from Stevie. I wonder if that was maybe an issue as well, I guess. Like, because it makes sense. Like, Lindsey seems to value this commitment and everything. Stevie does seem to it, like, extent, like, in a more, like, I guess, like, psychological, primitive way, but it doesn't seem like in a practical way she's able to demonstrate and reciprocate what Lindsey wants, the commitment he wants. It's an experimental relationship, and Lindsey doesn't appreciate Stevie's criticism. Lindsey is dominant and Stevie is submissive. I mean, this has to be in their personal relationship, because in the band, I don't think so. Unless it is, like, related to the more practical, like, mundane matters. Stevie's Mars overlaid in Lindsey's first house. Stevie inspires Lindsey to be more brave, and Stevie encourages Lindsey to be proud of who he is. Which I wonder if this is like the sort of illusion she kind of made in her head, or if it's the real Lindsey. Because, that could say if that was an issue for Lindsey. Stevie is blunt with Lindsey, and Lindsey has a desire to seduce Stevie. Lindsey's Mars overlaid in Stevie's fourth house. Lindsey pushes Stevie out of her comfort zone, which again, I feel like, particularly like if Lindsey just came in and like wanted to ruffle up, I don't know, the dynamics of the band or something, how things were done, and Stevie is quite comfortable with how things were going, because he seems to be doing that, ruffling feathers in that way. Lindsey can't provide the peace Stevie wants. I guess it could be with him a battle of like him wanting commitment, but also this, he's a free spirit as well. Lindsey feels flustered around Stevie, and Stevie is nurturing to Lindsey. Stevie creates a safe space for Lindsey, and arguments are heated due to being defensive and emotional. I mean, not surprisingly so. Stevie's Mars sextile Lindsey's Uranus. They encourage each other's independence. This makes me think like the relationship was a bit more, the relationship was mutual, hopefully, but like the breakup was a bit more mutual, like, but it's also throwing me off. In my head, at the back of I don't think I've mentioned it, in the back of my head is that sort of Silver Springs, like concert performance and everything. I'm pretty sure it was like a long time after like their relationship, and obviously, unless it was performative, but, taking it at face value, it seems like Stevie had a lot of resentment towards Lindsey, and it doesn't seem like resentment in a way, it sucks this relationship's over. It seems like Lindsey did something wrong, but it seems like this whole breakup they're having is a bit more mutual than on Lindsey's end. Does that make sense? It's an experimental relationship. I mean, it definitely they're in a very unique place together with the band and everything. They both share humanitarian interests, and Lindsey makes Stevie anxious. Lindsey's Mars conjunct Stevie's Saturn. Lindsey sees Stevie as controlling, not really surprisingly so. Lindsey respects Stevie's wisdom, and Lindsey tries to win Stevie's respect. It's interesting how we're seeing this whole thing trying to win her respect, trying to seduce her and everything. Like, he seems to be trying for her. They both need to be considerate, and its potential to be a good learning experience. Lindsey's Mars conjunct Stevie's Pluto. It's competitive, and Stevie brings depth. There are power struggles, and fights can be big. I think we've seen already a few times of like arguments and everything. They are both likely to transform here. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I would be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. Like, I feel like with this one, I don't remember the last time I read a couple. I'm like, they really should be together. Like, I like these two. They seem to have their troubles, but it seems like it worked for them and it was nice. It sucks that it's over. Definitely let me know if you guys interpreted the whole performance as well, because that seems to be like quite popular and like going viral now a bit. So definitely share your thoughts as well and what you think of that if you guys interpret that any differently. And if you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings twice weekly. And besides that, give this video a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! And a shout out to my astrology enthusiasts, Monkey Girl and Sky Games Vlog Hawker. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you would also like a shout out and get early access to new videos, click the join button below to join the memberships. There are 2 tiers, the observers and enthusiasts. So thank you again, Monkey Girl and Sky Games Vlog Hawker, for supporting the channel.